Welcome, everybody. Sorry for the delay. I think time got away from me. So I am here to start working on the patriotic bag I showed earlier. And the bag I'm working on is the Widget Messenger Bag from So Sweetness. And the materials I'm using are R2D2 themed. So we have, this is my lining, and this is my main fabric. So if you see it says red, white, bloop, just like R2D2, this is my lining. And also the very front pocket is also going to be R2D2. This is actually a bag I've made several times. It's one of my favorites to carry myself. It is a crossbody. It has lots of pockets. It has a cell phone pocket, some pen pockets. It has a mesh zipper pocket, an interior zipper pocket, as well as an exterior zipper pocket. Today, I'm planning on making the two zipper pockets, both the interior and exterior, and the mesh zipper pocket as well. We may go a little further just depending on how our time's going, but we're going to go ahead and get started. So the first things to start in this pattern is that if you ever have one of the So Sweetness patterns, she makes a list of all your supplies, any notions you might need, which are awesome, and then she has your instructions that are hers for the most part, unless they are a shaped pattern piece, she gives you measurements. If it's a shaped pattern piece, she has pattern pieces for you to cut out things, which I love. But she also has lots of, say that you need to cut this by this. Um, so like when we do our bottom of our bag, this is actually a measurement that we cut. So this has foam already attached. I've already done all the SF101 and foam for all the pieces. And this is what it's called. And as you can see, I always label my pieces. So this is lower panel. And of course, I drop pieces on the ground. But starting from the beginning, what she has you do first is prep a lot of your pockets, including your interior and exterior pockets. So we have the first one. We are going to do what she has you do. One way she does pockets, especially ones that are done, is that we have, this is your pocket piece that she gives you measurements to cut by. And then she says measure down from the top. So whenever I have a print, if I want it to go a certain direction, I don't have a certain direction I want this to go. So I just said make sure so I know the top, because all her measurements say down from the top or up from the bottom. And so I mark the top just so I know where I'm measuring from. And if I accidentally flip it around, I know, oh, wait, that's the top. That's what needs to be at the top of this. So we measure, and we're basically measuring. She gives you a measurement to start from the top. She says measure down from the top and draw one line. Then you go down half a line below, half an inch, half an inch below that, and you draw the next line, and then you draw an inch in from each side. So this is my exterior back, as you can see. I've also done this for my interior lining, because these are both done the same way. As you can see, I've got R2D2 on the inside. So you see that we have the same measurements on the inside. So what we're going to do is we are going to sew all the way around this box right here, this rectangle that we have done. And then I will show you what we do for the next step. And we're going to go ahead and do this for both pockets while we're here. Okay, so I will move you to the sewing machine. Okay, so because I don't, there will be times in this bag where I want my thread to not show up, especially when I'm doing the front pocket that's going to look like. And if you're wondering what the front pocket looks like, just to show, I say the front pocket. So what I'm talking about is this pocket right here. So I want that my focal point. So that's actually going to have R2D2 print right here. And so that is where I'm going to use white as a top stitch thread so that it, welcome, blends in and doesn't accentuate the pattern. So right now I have navy thread in because, as you see, most of my exterior fabric is a blue and I don't want it to stick out. Sometimes I would actually use red, white, and blue thread to accentuate or highlight the top stitching. So we're going to sew this. Usually start in the upper left corner of the rectangle. And like I said, you just go all the way around. Okay, so we're on the next to last side, and we are going to go up and meet with where we started. And don't forget to backstitch. And so we'll pull out our pins. And I'm going to go ahead and do this for the other one, but just to show you what it looks like on the back side. Now that we've sewn it, you can see it. And as you can see, I've put main here. That's a main panel, an exterior panel. But we have sewn all the way around. And I'm going to do that for my interior zipper pocket as well. Like I said, make sure you backstitch at the beginning and end so that your thread does not come undone. We're going on the other side of the rectangle. Like I said, all my pieces have been interfaced with SF101 because this is all fabric. None of this is vinyl. You could do this bag out of vinyl, but there's a lot of turning, so it's a lot harder if you do. So it's not my suggestion. We trim our threads. Okay, so for the next part, I'm going to go ahead and pull out the pins now that we're done holding that in place. So for the next part, what we're going to do, you can go in here and draw you a line so you can cut, but usually what I do is I will fold it in half. And I do a little nick there in the center where I folded it in half, if you can see right there. So then I open it up and we are going to cut basically right in the center until we get about 1/2 inch from the end. And at that point, we're going to go and clip in a triangle to the corner, making sure that you don't clip your stitches. So if you can see, we have our nice little triangle at the end. What this is doing is that it's opening up at the corners and making it where it'll be nice, and when we turn it, we will have crisp corners. Like I said, make sure you don't cut through your stitching. Okay, and I'm going to do this for my exterior as well. Like I said, again, I fold it in half. Make sure your top is out of the way so you don't accidentally cut it. And so I just do a little cut, maybe about 1/4 inch. If you wanted to, like I said, you could draw a line and draw a line to be exact. I don't normally, but then again, I've been doing this for a while. Like I said, you stop about 1/2 inch from the end. I'm going to trim it or make our little triangle up to the corners again. Yet again, just to show you. Now this is my exterior, as you can tell with the foam that's on the back. Okay. Now, when you're doing one that has foam, just to reduce bulk behind where the zipper is, I will go in the seam allowance and trim away the excess foam because that's just kind of sitting floating there. So just make sure you don't cut your exterior fabric with it. Just trim off the extra foam so that it won't be in your way. Okay. And so I always trim it away. Okay, and I'll do that on top and bottom and each of the little rectangles. Hi, Annette. And what's great about foam, you get it started, it's like having wrapping paper. You can just kind of, a lot of times, get it to just kind of tear away, which is kind of nice. So this is just reducing the bulk. When we will pull it through, our pocket through to the other side, and we are going to add our zipper. And I'll show you the awesome zipper tape I have, as well as the really awesome pulls I'm using. All right, so now if you can see, I have trimmed away the extra foam outside of my seam so that it's not there when I'm trying to pull it through. So what we're going to do for our pocket, we are actually going to push it all the way through this hole. Push it to the other side. Of course, I've got straggly threads. And as you can see, so there's my print. And what we're going to do is we're going to fold it down and we will sew it after we get our zipper tape in there. But there's our print, and I'm going to go take it to the sewing machine, I mean, the iron, in just a minute after we pull the other one through as well. So now we have our interior zipper pocket and our exterior zipper pocket. That's one reason I love this bag. It has so many awesome pockets, so you can separate things out very easily. Okay, I'm gonna go press this real quick and I'll be right back. If there are any questions so far about what I'm doing, feel free to ask. Um, the I have another one of these actually already cut out for my 17-year-old daughter. That is Betty Boop as well. So maybe making one of those in the next couple weeks as well. Right now, I am pressing it open, and I will show you what it looks like when it is pressed open. I'm going to go ahead and press both pockets because we're doing them both at the same time because they're the same exact steps for both interior and exterior for the zipper pockets. So better to do, and even in the pattern, she walks you through the exterior pocket and then says, repeat these steps for the interior lining zipper pocket. So I am double checking from front and back that everything looks good for pressing it. And I will do the lining now just to make sure everything looks good. And then I will show y'all what it looks like. Hopefully everyone is starting to think about their makes for 4th of July so that you can use it for all the month of June and all of July. It's May, so of course I've had Star Wars on my mind. Not really the biggest fan of the new Star Wars stuff, but I'm a huge Star Wars fan of the original trilogy. Plus The Mandalorian. I enjoy The Mandalorian a lot. But I have a soft spot in my heart for R2D2. So he is definitely my favorite character from Star Wars. Not exactly sure why, but always has been. Okay, so we're done pressing. Double stick tape. So I just want to go over how I normally do these things. So just to move you back this way for a minute. So just to show you how it looks now that it's been all pressed and there's the inside of the pocket. What we're going to do is we're going to take our zipper tape, and just to show you, I have some really cool patriotic zipper tape that's from Dream Big Creations. And then I have this awesome R2 zipper pull that's from Mojo Sews. And that's for my exterior pocket. For my interior pocket, I have two different ones. I have, and these I'm using number 3 zipper tape instead of number 5. And I just have some white, but they're to blend in better with the R2 print. And I have the Millennium Falcon, and then I have the Star Wars emblem. So we're going to do the exterior one first. So what we're going to do here is that we are going to center our zipper tape, and we will cut off any excess just to show you. We are going to center, making sure your zipper pull's there so you don't sew it in there, in that hole there. Now there are ways you can do it. You can pin it in place, you can hold it in place, which is usually what I do, or I'll show you another way I do it sometimes if things want to be a little persnickety. I use double-sided tape, an eighth of an inch double-sided tape, and I get this from Wizardry Stitchery. They're geekyhardware.com. This is the 1/8 inch wide, so if I put it on there, it's not going to be in my seam or anything like that. And this is some of the best sticking zipper tape. So I'm going to show you how I use the double-sided tape for this. And I just put it at the, I will move my camera back so you can see what I'm doing. All right, so I have my double-sided tape. And just to show, I'm putting it at the very bottom and top of the zipper tape. Oop, and it's about to lose the whole roll down the into the floor. So I'm just sticking it there, and I go all the way across. And this is just to hold it secure when you are sewing your box to keep your zipper tape in place. And I said, since we sew this, most of our seams are at a 1/4 inch. It is never really in our seam allowance. Okay, so we've got one side of double-sided tape, and I'm going to do the same on the other side. And I apologize now if I seem like I'm shaky. I have a trimmer in my right hand, so it doesn't affect me, but I have people go, "Oh my gosh, you're shaking really bad." So I'm used to sewing and everything with it, so it doesn't phase me. But other people, it kind of goes, "Oh gosh, are you okay?" Some of the time, and or they think I can't do something. So I've dealt with this for over 20 years, so kind of used to it at this point. All right, so we're going to put our double-sided tape back up. Like I said, this stuff is awesome. And if you're worried about, like, I'm going to show you how I do it with the double-sided tape and also how I do it just holding it in place. So when I do double-sided tape, so you see I have it on both sides. When I'm wanting to center it under here, I take off one side of the double-sided tape at the beginning. I don't take off both. Okay, and so I want my zipper to where it unzips to the right. So I'm going to make sure that my zipper pull is pointed towards the left. All right, so I am going to center over my zipper tape. And I have made my zipper tape longer than I need it, mainly so that I can have enough to play with. I can put it kind of center it how I want. Like right now, I kind of want it where I'm seeing all three colors, because this is a red, white, and blue zipper tape. And yes, the main reason I'm using the double-sided tape on this one, I probably will not do that on the interior one because it is not as sensitive as to where I want for placement. So just to show, I've got the double-sided tape on the top. I've taken off the paper, as you can see, and I'm going to do that on the bottom now. Okay, so I just peel off my bottom, and I am going to fold my thing back down. And the biggest thing here is I make sure that it is centered on this zipper tape. Just so you can see, it's good and centered. That really cool looking zipper pull. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that your top and bottom of your pocket are out of the sewing way so that they're not going to accidentally get sewn in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew this at 1/8 of an inch from the edge. And we're going to sew all the way around our rectangle. And as I get close to the zipper pull, I will actually pull it past it so that it's not in my way, doesn't give me any weird lumps in the zipper tape. And I am pulling it when I get to the end so that it will pull those corners nice and taut. And like I said, I'm just going 1/8 of an inch all the way around. Probably the next bag I will actually make myself after this would be a dragon themed bag because we have the new How to Train Your Dragon movie coming out next month. And I'm a huge Dragons fan. Plus, Epic Universe is opening up tomorrow officially. Mm, I have that thing that shifted real quick. Like I said, sometimes I make it where the top stitching fabric is an accent and I will have it stick out. But right now, because my main front panel is R2D2 and it will be white, I will be using white or navy just so that all the stitching blend. So we've done all around. Show you what that looks like, and then we'll do the same for the interior. So here's our exterior. And to finish this off, we are actually going to pin the two sides together. If I'm moving too fast for anyone, feel free to ask. So we're going to pin right sides together. Now, one thing I'm going to do before I sew this is that you can see what we have extra here. I'm going to trim off down to 1/4 inch beyond our stitching. So you can see I've trimmed it down. I'm going to do the same on the other side. And so this is just to trim this down because we don't need all the excess zipper tape. Then I trim it down to about 1/4 inch past the stitching. Now, if you haven't ever done this, trying to remember where my lighter is. Whenever you have zipper tape, it's best to actually seal your ends once you have a raw edge. And I use a lighter to do that. And what it does is it melts the ends of your zipper tape and it will not unravel. So I'm going to do that to both ends. You can use a lighter. You could use fray check. I just use a lighter because since it is a polyester tape or nylon tape, it will melt and seal the ends. Just double check on my seam allowance. It's been a while. Yep. I thought hers was 1/4 inch. And it's always good to check your seam allowances allowed by the pattern designer to make sure you're not sewing at 3/8 of an inch and you need to be sewing at a quarter, or vice versa, because it will make the bag not work. So we're going to sew this at 1/4 of an inch. Now, actually, when I do pockets like this, I will actually sew the width of the right up next to where that little triangle comes out. So this is actually about 1/2 inch. So I'm actually going to sew 1/2 inch all the way down and then over at 1/4 inch seamless, and I'll show you what that looks like. And then I trim away the excess fabric so that it's not in my seams. But like I said, the seam allowance is 1/4 inch, so you could sew it 1/4 inch. But I find it's less likely that my pocket's going to end up caught in my seam. So I go all the way down, and we have to leave about a 6-inch hole at the bottom for turning. So what I'm going to do is going to go over here, and I'm going to sew just about half, 3/4 of an inch, not to be exact, just so I have those crisp corners. So just to show you, there's my seam. And like I said, I'm going to take my scissors and trim away excess fabric. Doesn't have to be perfectly straight at this point, but it's just to get it to reduce bulk. I will do the same on the other side, except this time I am starting at the bottom because I'm doing the other side. Okay. You're going up that side. Okay, so we have shown that, so I will trim down that down as well. I'll get also getting rid of my little scraggly pieces that were starting to fray off this cotton fabric. Now, one thing you need to make sure to do is you trim your corners at the bottom of each pocket. Okay, so as you can see, that's the back. And we're going to do the same thing for the interior zipper pocket. But here's our exterior zipper pocket all the way done. Look at all that R2 goodness. So we're going to do our interior one, same way, except this time I'm going to show you how I just kind of hold my zipper tape. Once I figure out where my zipper tape ran to, there we go. So we have, let's use the Star Wars. So we have our nice Star Wars logo. And we are going to put it underneath. And now this works the same as number 5 and number 3 zipper tape. That doesn't change except how much space you may have on either side and the fact that your pull is smaller as well as the teeth are smaller. Biggest thing is to make sure it's centered. I'm going to hold it in place. Okay. Like I said, make sure you back stitch at the beginning and the end. So as you can see, it still works pretty well as far being the difference between number 3 and number 5 zipper tape. I'm pulling my fabric taut as I go around those corners just to make sure that my lining stays in the lining part instead of showing up through. Now for this, it doesn't matter. It's actually the same exact fabric, so it's not going to show up as much as some. And so we are going to move. I'm actually going to take this and pull a little bit. And just go all the way around. And like I've always said, don't feel like you have to go super fast, super. I take my time. I go fast sometimes, slow others. It just depends on what's warranted. Okay. So we have the next pocket sewn. And before I fold it over, I will trim that, as I said before, trim down that extra zipper tape and then use my lighter to sure I am burning the ends of the zipper tape so it doesn't fray. And then I will do that on the other end as well. And we'll burn that in. Just make sure not to catch your fabric on fire. So now we're going to take it and fold our pocket, the top down to meet the bottom. And we are going to pin that together and then we will sew it just like we did the exterior one. And you will definitely need to leave the 6-inch hole in the bottom of this one as well. They are both used as turning holes, so that's why you don't, oh, I've got one open. I don't need the other one. No, this is a bag that you will need both of them open. So you just leave about a 6-inch hole in the bottom. Just a second. So before we sew that, I can show you what this looks like. We have our lining. And there's our pocket. And sew that. Went a little too far, so I'll back it up one. Okay, there's the first side. We're gonna do the other side. And like I said before, you trim the corners, and I trim off excess fabric that's not needed, just so it's out of my seams, doesn't accidentally get caught when I'm sewing the main body of the bag. Okay, and I'll sew the other side. A little bit more. All right. We'll sew all the way up. Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and trim my excess away there as well. Like I said, the seam allowance is 1/4 inch, but I actually go in to where the edge of the that would give you a little bit more of a pocket, but I've never found that that's really an issue. So that's just my personal preference. So I sew those at about a 1/2 inch and then trim off the extra 1/4. But just to show you what it looks like, and see, there was the top. So if you had a directional print, your top would actually be the bottom of your thing. So when you open it, what was at the top is actually down at the bottom of your pocket. So that's our other zipper pocket done. So we'll set that to the side. And one more thing we're going to do tonight is I am going to do, and this one I'll actually have to remember the steps. It's been a while. There's one, and there's the other. All right, so we have a mesh pocket. And this one, they want you to have exactly an exact measurement for your zipper tape. So I'm going to trim that down. And this is so it fits exactly on your mesh pocket, because we're going to do things a little differently here. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and flame the ends just so that it does not fray. And what's different, we have zipper tabs. Now I have already, hold on, apparently I didn't flame that enough. These were pieces that were longer and they're folded in half and then folded in half again. And you see I fussy cut one so that I had my little R2 right there. We are going to fit that right down. Okay, so we don't want it to go, see, I've pushed it, we don't want it to go all the way in. We want it to go about halfway. So you can feel about halfway from the fold. And what we're going to do is we are going to top stitch this. Now we'll hold this in place. You could pin it in place. You could use some double-sided tape just to, if it makes you feel more comfortable. So we are going to hold it in place. And then we are going to stitch it together at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance from the edge of the zipper tab. And we are going to do this on both ends of the zipper tape. Okay. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to actually trim this down to where it's even with our zipper tape. And we're going to do this on both sides. So just so I can make sure I get the right cut, what I do is I actually turn it so I can see the other side so I can get right next to the zipper tape and I know I'm not cutting the zipper tape. So now that my zipper tab is exactly the size I need, I'm going to do the same for the other side. Okay, and that's about halfway through. Like I said, you can pin it in place. I usually just hold it in place until I get over to the machine needle. I'll trim this even with the zipper tape. Okay. So we have our zipper tabs. We have our little Millennium Falcon zipper pull. So now we are going to take, we have our mesh, and if you see, it's that lovely R2 color blue. And we have two pieces of binding that are the same length as our mesh. My brain is not wanting to work. So we're going to double check, and this should be the length that is supposed to be in the, it is. Okay. So what we do is that we have two pieces of binding. So you are actually taking it and we folded it in half preemptively. I'm gonna set my zipper tape to the side for the moment and the other binding. Okay, just to look at back at something. Okay, so we have our binding. Sorry, I had to read something. And what we are going to do is we are going to clip this to the top edge of our binding. And clips are handier with mesh than pins, just because it doesn't shift, at least in my experience. Plus, you have these giant holes for the mesh, and they like to move if you have pins. So I will clip this all the way across. I'm going ahead and clipping the other side. And this is the same width as our mesh. Now we are going to sew this at a scant quarter of an inch, which what that means is that it's slightly below a quarter inch, just barely, or right at. You need to make sure you're definitely not over, or it will come into play later. Apparently, I'm throwing clips at myself. Apparently, I'm putting purple threads on myself as well. So when I sew a scant, I go slightly under just to make sure I'm under what I should be. So now what we're going to do is we're going to actually take this and you're going to fold the seam up towards the binding, and we're going to fold down our binding where it's even with that seam, and we're going to clip it in place. You could use pins or clips for this. Like I said, when I'm doing stuff with mesh, I usually use clips. Less likely there's any issues. So I'm going to do that all the way across. And this is an interior mesh pocket that we are making. And all this is putting binding at the top of your mesh pocket. Now, sometimes I'll use lots of pins and clips, and sometimes I don't. This is one where it likes to shift a lot. So I will use a little more clips than I would for something else. Okay. So if you can see it clipped, and I'm going to take and top stitch an eighth of an inch from that folded edge. Okay, so we're just top stitching our binding down. Okay. If anybody has any questions right now, feel free to ask. Just trimming my threads. Okay. Let's set those to the side because we will need our clips again. So we have our finished binding, and we see the white bloop and then a little R2D2. So the next part is to actually take our zipper tape that we have put our tabs on. And what we were going to do, we are going to center our zipper tape. And right now I am actually going to, and I will use a pin here just to show you another way I use it. And we are going to get that about a 1/4 inch above the edge of the zipper tape, or 1/8 of an inch down from the zipper T. I'll show you what this looks like when we're done. And we're yet again top stitching at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, I will show you once we're completed and I have trimmed the stitching. Now we are not trimming any excess at the moment. We will trim that after we have attached it to our other lining piece. And just to show you, there are two sets of stitching. One is closing up the binding and one is attaching it to the zipper tape. And if you want to look, this is what it looks like on the back side. Okay. Now the last part here is that we are going to take our other piece of binding and we are going to bind on the back side of the zipper tape, just how we did the front side of the mesh, and we are going to clip it in place. You can clip it, you can pin it, either way. And we're going to sew this at a scant 1/4 of an inch again. And this is attaching the binding to your zipper tight. Okay, and I'm actually going to take my pull and pull it back to the other end of the thing so it's not in my way. And we have our last little bit there. And we are attaching this from the wrong side of the zipper so that when we fold our binding over, it will fold over to the front of the zipper. So now I'm going to take, and as you can see, I have sewn it. And we are going to fold it over. I'm going to clip it in place. Like I said, and in this regard, like I said, sometimes I use more clips than others. This is one of those cases as well, just to hold it in place for the top stitching to close it up. You would not necessarily need all these clips, but like I said, it is to keep it from shifting. So we are going to top stitch that, add 1/8 of an inch from the edge. A stray thread right there. Or it's actually where the fabric frayed and it was just kind of hanging in there. Okay. Moving our pull back out of the way. And as you can see, I'm also adjusting it to make sure that the seam allowance stays the same all the way across so that my zipper does not look wavy or anything like that because I have different depths for the binding. I'll trim my threads here just to show what the front versus the back looks like. Fully encased zipper. And now what we're going to do, we are going to place the this is my lining fabric. We're going to place the mesh pocket. And we're going to flip it all the way around. In place. And then we're going to top stitch at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around to encase this pocket. And this is the other interior panel, main panel. Just watching me pop clips up. We'll need a few more clips. Mesh is notoriously bad for wanting to move, so I'm just making sure I have enough clips to hold it all the way around. And we're going to do that to the other side. And we're going to clip this all the way down. One more. I'm going to start on this side and sew all my way down, and then sew across and end up at that side yet again. And we're just going all the way around of an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So we are going the last little bit around, and then we will go across, and that will seal this pocket. And that will be the second set of stitching. Let's move my zipper pull out of the way. And we are going to top stitch this at a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And this makes our two pieces of binding look identical. With the sets of stitching that they have on them. So just so you can see, we have our mesh pocket, and when we open it, it's a fully encased pocket, as you can see here. And what we're going to do, if you look on the back, you can trim off any excess mesh or binding or anything like that. And that will complete what we're going to finish for tonight. So we have our interior mesh pocket with the little Millennium Falcon. We have our interior zipper pocket, little Star Wars logo. And we have our exterior pocket with our little R2D2 zipper pull. And that's where I'll complete for tonight, and we will do the next set of steps next week. And I'll see y'all then.